Welcome to Speaking Cinema, serious movie Jibber Jabber, a movie podcast. Ain't nobody dope as us, because we're live from Los Angeles.
Slant rhyme, folks. Slant rhyme.
Indeed. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, Instagram, Speaking Cinema, every single Monday, iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. I am your host, wise old trailer-living urban denizen, Mr. Jibber Jabber. With me today, as always, hustling young people at chess in the park, Kevin.
Knight to Rook 4. Checkmate. Gotcha. Is that a move? Of course it is.
If this is your first time listening to this, or if you've just forgotten, this is Speaking Cinema. We pick a movie, talk about what we know about it, its genre, the filmmakers, how we feel about that, etc. Then we watch it, then we talk about our take on the movie. All of this work because we seek a conceptual conversation about movies. Join us or die. Okay, maybe don't die.
Yeah,
Don't die. Definitely don't die. But join us.
This podcast ain't worth your life, kid.
As I was told. This is season 9. Season 9. We're taking a look at requests from fans of the show.
We have fans. It's fantastic.
And this week on the Jibber Jabber, we do another one. This week's film come from regular listener Corey. Corey.
You're the man, Corey.
This is for you. How do we know Corey?
He was our boss at the company that won't be named.
And that mofo can eat.
That guy, when he eats lunch, it's like 3 lunches.
I've seen it.
And that's his pre-lunch. Then he has one more lunch.
Call it. These are some fighting words I hear, Kev. I don't know about this. In a world where criminals make the rules, an innocent boy is out to beat them at their own game. 1994's Fresh. Although no one says it like that in the movie, but
nope.
Fresh. Starring Sean Nelson, Samuel L. Jackson, Giancarlo Esposito.
Giancarlo.
Giancarlo? I've heard it pronounced wrong all of this time.
Giancarlo Esposito.
Written and directed by Boz Yarkin. Fix that one, Kev.
I believe it's Bose Yankin.
Bose Yankin?
Yeah.
This is my least favorite part of the show. And produced by Lumiere Pictures.
Lumiere.
Distributed by Miramax? Miramax.
Stumbled over that one. I knew you would.
The Weinstein Company.
The Weinstein
themselves. What? We're not...
In their prolific
90s run.
Early 90s of just killing it in the independent film game.
But no Oscar nominees for this movie.
No.
If you're not familiar with titular movie Fresh, Fresh follows a young boy, nicknamed Fresh, who pushes drugs in the projects of New York. After witnessing a terrible act of violence, Fresh decides that he wants to get out of the drug game for good. Kind of a spoilery synopsis?
Nah, not really.
You don't think so?
No, that happens early.
Okay, all right. Not a lot of background on this movie. And you know what?
Yeah, I tried to find it. Really, I don't know. Not a lot of history of this was written. Blah, 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 blah.
Kind of a forgotten 90s Miramax movie.
I had never even heard of this movie until this here podcast.
I have not either. But this film made its rounds in the festival circuit of 1994, as is tradition. It won the Filmmakers Trophy at the Sundance and Best Debut Performance at the Independent Spirit Awards. So
for Sean Nelson, who plays Fresh.
That got that Independent Spirit Award.
Coveted.
No Oscar. The director went on to direct Remember the Titans and Uptown Girls. He has written Dirty Dancing, Havana Nights, Prince of Persia, and both Now You See Me films. Just a career of streetwise, street level movies.
A pure working man's career. Right.
From what
Directs a movie every now and then. Write some big stuff, write some little stuff. Just, good work, Bose.
It's interesting, I listen and read a lot about the industry, the biz, if you will. Will you? No? Okay.
Yeah.
And, they talk...
I will, just for you.
It's interesting. They talk about, if you want to be a action guy or a horror guy or a drama guy, you gotta... that's what you gotta do, right? You can't... It's bad... The concept... The common idea would be if you want to be a horror director, don't write a comedy, write a horror movie. And this guy is apparently the exception that proves the rule, because how the fuck you go from Fresh to Uptown Girls to Now You See Me, you know what I mean? It's
This got his fingers in all the little pies there.
Yeah, he's just
didn't pigeonhole himself.
10 pie Sean.
I feel it's like if you do the 2 in a row, and then that's when you're going to get pigeonholed. I think it's especially true with horror directors. You do 2 horror movies in a row, you're a horror director.
From the fan, you saying as a fan, from the fan perspective?
Yeah, I think so. And I think from an industry perspective, too. They're going to be like, oh, we got a horror movie, call this guy up. But you're like, no, I want to do comedy. Well, then you really got to, like, transition into that, you know? You know, it's like the guy who did It Follows. His first movie is the Teenage Sleepover.
Right, yeah, which is like like an indie drama.
Very much a loose indie drama.
And then he got his horror movie made, and then he said publicly, like, I don't want to do another horror. I'm not going to do another horror movie.
He's kind of on a path where he can do whatever he wants. So the guy like Robert Eggers, who did The Witch, I'm curious to see what his next movie's going to be. Because if it's a horror movie, then I think he's going to just...
Has he commented on that? Does he want to be a horror guy? Do we know?
I haven't heard, so...
Interesting. I wonder... I mean, and also, speaking of this, Key and Peele, their first movie post their show that they're going to direct is going to be a horror movie for Blumhouse.
Really?
Yeah.
That should be interesting.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, the guy, Jordan was on the Blumhouse podcast. Shout out to Shockwaves. And he was talking about his love of horror and how they're really into it. And it's interesting, because it's like, oh, you're a comedy guy. You have a comedy show. You're a comedian. But he's like, no, I want to make a horror movie.
A comedy movie.
Right.
The Keanu, the cat movie.
And yeah, everyone thought that they're going to make a comedy. But they're like, no, we'll make a horror movie.
Let's see it.
So, very interesting. Sean Nelson, the young star of the movie, went on to have a career in television, including David Simon's The Corner, a precursor to The Wire. Precursor tonally? Precursor same universe? What, Avengers situation? What are we doing here?
Kind of a...
Frankenstein meets the Wolfman? What's going on?
Theme, tone sort of thing. Like it's kind of a dress rehearsal for The Wire, if you will.
And well received, or...
Not as beloved as The Wire. I would say most people probably don't even know what The Corner is. And I've personally never seen it, but from what I know, it's got the right beats, but it's just not quite there. And then The Wire is just a fantastic pot roast of brilliant urban drama.
Best season of The Wire. Season 2?
I'd go season 4, maybe. Season 4.
Of 5?
Yeah. No, I like 5. A lot of people don't like 5. I like 5. But season 4 has got... that's good.
That's the ice cream.
That is some ice cream.
As of this recording, fresh, available for streaming on Netflix. So if you pay a monthly fee for Netflix, you get this movie included in that bundle. Yes. That's how Netflix works. As well on digital HD purchase, major retailers, your iTunes, your Voodoos, your SoundClouds. Not SoundCloud. Amazon. Available on the DVD, no Blu-ray, fucking Miramax. No love for the Blu-ray.
Yep.
Do you find yourself, are you still a Blu-ray guy? Or?
Oh yeah.
That's your choice?
I love my Blu-rays. The physical media, you can just get anything you want and it's yours. I have this collection ideal of like, if I buy it, then it's mine. If I just have like, I pay a monthly fee and there's this whole library of everything, it doesn't feel as personal.
I had I recently had a revelation where it was like, talking to Emily, friend of the show, my love of my life, girlfriend. And she was saying the easiest way for me to never, she's talking about books, but I think this applies to all media.
Yeah.
The easiest way for me to not read a book is to buy it. And I was like, oh shit. Because I think every time I buy something, I'm like, cool, I have it, so it's over there, right? I mean, I think like part of the reason why we made this podcast is so that I could finally fucking watch Speed Racer, which I got for like $1 at Amoeba, and I was like, oh, I should watch Speed Racer for $1, and it's like, well, how many years ago was that? God damn it!
Yep, $1 has appreciated since then. So,
the upcoming season, not so summer blockbusters. Gonna check it out. Kev, have you heard of Fresh? You already said you hadn't heard of it, but have you seen it?
Have not seen it.
Which matches up. Your story checks out.
It'd be fantastic if, I never even heard of this movie. Saw it one time, though.
Yeah. I've also never heard of or seen it. So the question becomes, why did Corey pick it for our podcast? And I can answer that question because he said, and I quote, "This is my favorite movie."
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Corey, very in tune with films as well. So
a fan.
He could easily fit in on this podcast. And so, yeah, it's for him to say that this is his favorite, it just makes me anxious to watch it.
So
I trust his opinion.
speaking of anxiety to watch this movie, this is a urban film, right? Urban inner city kind of a movie. A crime drama, from what we've been told. This is our first real gritty urban crime drama, not stylized like The Warriors. There's a lot of them out there. Different countries, get into this. Do you like that kind of a movie?
I really do, and I think it's because different countries can explore very similar themes, and it's a problem. It's not just an American problem or an American story. It's everywhere because you have Do the Right Thing, and you have Fresh, and you have Boys in the Hood and
Menace Society, and then Brazil, Kingdom of God,
City of God from Brazil,
yeah,
and then you have there are films from Germany, Italy. Gomorrah is a brilliant film from Italy about the actual world of the mob.
Interesting. And would you call Bicycle Thief a gritty urban crime drama?
I wouldn't call
that guy steals a bike.
Grand Theft Bike, for God's sake. Biciclette. That to me is more of just an urban drama of but again, and these don't have to be crime movies per se. They can just be, this is life for a certain group of people.
Right.
And it's amazing how universal that can be understood, City of God especially is that hits you like a 10-ton atom bomb.
I've never seen that movie.
Oh, you should check it out.
I had it. Emily got it for me on DVD, and it didn't work on my PlayStation.
Really?
Yeah, I had a PS. This is back when I had a PS2, and it was the first PS2 that came out that first Christmas.
Yep.
I remember I got it, and it was the blue. This is dude,
that first batch definitely had a few.
Well, it was the fucking Stone Age where it's it didn't have any Wi-Fi built into it, so you had to plug it in, and they didn't know how to it was before it seems like a million years ago, right? It's before there was a hard drive in it, so there's no way to patch the software because nothing is stored on.
Yep.
And it's what?
Exactly. How do we live with ourselves?
Yeah, no, I remember when those consoles were coming out, and it's we're not gonna do hard drives. It's are you guys fucking stupid?
They do we'll give external hard drives that these big blocks
that no one will ever buy and will never support.
Yeah. Yeah. God, it's, like you said, it seems like it's a million years ago, but that was 12 years ago.
Yeah. Ridiculous. I would say that I like Men's Society and Boys of the Hood. Those are great movies, and they're serious movies, and I like them, and there's no doubt that they're good, right? Just from a filmmaking perspective, they're good movies, and they're introducing you into cultures that you're not necessarily familiar with, and circumstances that you're not necessarily familiar with. But they're definitely movies that are hard to be in the mood for because they are just brutal. And me personally, it's I'd rather watch a movie about a robot than a movie about reality.
It's true. You gotta, 30 Rock had the joke that Tracy is in the film Hard to Watch. It's the title of his Oscar-winning movie.
It's not the rural juror, is it?
Yeah, not the rural juror. It's Hard to Watch. And these movies are ultimately difficult to watch. It's going on. I would say probably the easiest one to watch just as a pure entertainment value is Do the Right Thing. Because that movie there's
a stylish flair to it.
It's very stylish. It's very funny. But then it moves into this this urban crime, this is a problem.
Right.
Type of movie.
Problems on the block kind of issues.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's And I mean, it sounds like I'm being negative about them, and I'm not, right? Because there's nothing wrong with these movies. It's my own preference of, if I'm gonna sit down and watch a movie, I don't necessarily want to be reminded that the world's terrible. This is for the same reason I don't watch giant earthquake movies.
Yeah.
Like the one with Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to. I live in California. I don't need a fucking movie about how my apartment can fall over. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Let's talk about zombies.
Something that can't happen, hopefully.
So I guess in terms of excitement, I'd be more excited for something like New Jack City or Tales from the Hood. But is there anything that you want out of this movie that you haven't gotten from other ones?
I'm just curious to see. This is one of the few that has a child protagonist. I feel a lot of them deal with grown-up protagonists, although City of God deals with children. So yeah, I'm curious how they're gonna. If the kid's the main character, how's that going to change?
Right, you want that to matter.
Exactly.
Yeah, it indeed. And I don't know what I want from this. Like I just kind of want to like it. You know what I mean?
If Corey says it's his favorite movie, then just count me anticipating this.
Well, before we get to it, watching it, this is our second episode featuring the great Samuel L. Jackson.
First one being the Hateful Eight.
Indeed. Do you like his prolific style of pretty much accepting any script that comes his way, or do you wish he'd be more choosy? And I mean, I think we could both say, it goes without saying, that we are a fan of Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, much like Tom Cruise, he's never the issue with any movie he's in, I don't think. But I do wish he'd be a little more choosy in his old age. So,
here's the thing.
You know, it's like, do you have to do the spirit? Like, when you read that script and you're like, oh yeah, I need to put my name on that. It's like, man, dude.
Here's the thing. And I was listening to a Hollywood Reporter roundtable, which was it's on their YouTube channel. They release these kind of every year. They'll do like a actors roundtable, and they did one when he was at the Hateful Eight. Oscar time.
Yeah.
And I love these. They're great because they just talk about topics and they go around. And he's like, listen, like, I want to be in the movies I watched as a kid. I've always wanted to be in a Western. I want to be in horror movies. I want to be in action movies. Like, these are the movies I like.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to do. And so I think that he's not afraid of, like, I think The Spirit, in retrospect, at the time was a great idea, right? Frank Miller coming off of Sin City. Robert Rodriguez put him over, whatever. And then, we're not thinking about the fact that he has a really big problem with alcohol. We're not thinking the fact that, Robert Rodriguez is a really nice guy saying that he directed this movie when he, more than likely didn't really direct much of it.
Yeah.
And and so it's like, I think he's not afraid to take the chance. You know what I mean? And also from what I know of him, I think I learned this in doing research for the episode. I was looking at his Inside the Actor Studio, and I think he said that he was doing Pulp Fiction during the day, and at night he would go do a play in LA. And I don't think it was like at the Pantages a play. I think it was like at like a black box theater play.
Yeah.
I think he just likes working.
He just likes working, and you know what? I appreciate that. So
yeah. So
keep it up. So.
As a guy who I think that if we ever had that kind of a career, I think we would want to be like that guy who takes the roles that he thinks is like interesting. Like Snakes on a Plane, right? Yeah. It's just like, oh, it's an exploitation movie? Like, yeah, I'll do it. Like, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
And good for him that he's not sullied himself. Because I feel like
he's doing a lot of commercial work today, too. But, like, they're good commercials.
Right.
The spots they did with Charles Barkley and Spike Lee during March Madness this year were hilarious. Mm-hmm. They were so good.
Mm-hmm. And then you look at...
You never feel like he's just being a shill and he's being dumb.
And you can describe him as a guy who never says no, but then you look at someone else like that, like, like a Nicolas Cage or like Dolph Lundgren or these other guys, and it's like, well, how does Samuel L. Jackson comes out smelling like a rose and everyone else comes out smelling like fucking dirt, right? Like, Samuel L. Jackson goes and does, fucking Formula 49 or whatever that movie is about. And then, but, he'll get put in all of Spike Lee's movies, all of Tarantino's movies, all of these Oscar movies, all of these everything.
He doesn't lose the respect of these big filmmakers that will just take him, you know?
So I gotta think that even though he's coming to these, like, what we could describe as a Bobo movie, I don't think he's coming with his Bobo game, Sure. And I think maybe that's not confirmed. That's just what could be the difference,
Exactly. So, like I said, he's never the issue. It's never like, this thing would be better without Samuel L. Jackson.
Said no one ever.
I don't think that's ever been uttered.
Soundtrack for this movie, fresh, features 3 songs by the Wu-Tang Clan. Kev, would you say Cash Rules Everything Around You?
I ain't nothing to fuck with. Wu-Tang
Clan. On that note, I think we should just get into this movie.
Let's dig in to Fresh.
Here we go. Kev, we're back.
We're back.
How and when did you watch this movie?
I watched Fresh on Netflix.
As did I.
During the week.
I took a nice Saturday afternoon and sat down and watched Fresh.
There we go. I did a little day after work. So.
As is a going theme on this show, if anyone has been listening, normally our first 50 episodes, I would always throw it to you first. But I'm gonna start this conversation.
You're just taking them all.
I just feel like I want to.
You got strong opinions these days.
And I think.
And you know what? I applaud you.
I only know how to talk about movies in one way, Kev, and that's in Beast Mode. This movie.
Go on.
This movie is great. There's great storytelling. and it achieves greatness. But specifically, right? Specifically, I like this movie for what it is, and I like this movie also for what it isn't.
Go on.
It's not dumb. It's not cliched.
No.
It's not. There's macho characters, but it's not a macho movie. And it's not about a kid with a heart of gold. It's not about a bad person. It's what I mean. It just doesn't rock down that road of like everyone who's bad is only bad, right? Like he has these two drug dealers in his life, Corky and Giancarlo. Yeah. And I don't remember his character's name. And they're nice to him. They like him. They think that he's smart. They think that he will one day be like them. There's a father figure kind of thing going on, which speaks to why someone would get involved in drugs and gangs. It's like I think there's growing up in the suburbs, there was like this white America, rich America, middle class America trifecta of like gangs are pointless, and it's like, and there's kind of a racial undertone to that. And it's like that those people just want to do the wrong thing, right?
And by those people,
it's like black
people, it's Latino people,
right?
Exactly.
And I think that black people, poor people, whatever. And I think like if you stop and think, well, why would someone join a gang? Like kids in the suburbs don't join gangs, but why is that? And I think it's like, you look at Fresh, and it's like there's a level of believability to this movie where it's like this kid is living in the projects, he lives with his aunt. His aunt's trying to help out the community, and there's 12 kids and blah blah blah. And it's like he just doesn't have anything. His school is bullshit. There's nothing for him to do. You know what I mean? There's no one around him that has any kind of success, right? There's a lot of things in this movie that are not. The movie's also greatly understated. No one is explaining this is how we sell heroin. This is how we sell crack. You just gotta pay the fuck attention, right? Uh-huh. So there's no one who says like, oh, you don't know any doctors. You don't know any lawyers. Everyone that you know either works a shitty job or doesn't do anything, right? And you see the oppressive bubble that this kid lives in, right? Where there's just very little hope. And I think that's the thing that like no one wants to talk about, because then you have to talk about like, well, why is it like that? You know?
Don't have anything to do besides that, because you cut school programs and you cut social programs and you cut all these things, and all of a sudden it's like nobody has a job and nobody has anything to do. So
right.
What are they gonna do?
And then
they're gonna get together and get pissed off.
And then in this movie it shows you how like the cycle of violence can work, right? Because you're living in this terrible situation, something bad happens, you can't say anything, and then it keeps perpetuating itself. And then this movie kind of goes into a genre element that kind of gives you a satisfying ending. We'll get to that in a minute. But just going real quick to wrap up the ideas of like, I love how the drug dealers, they're not nice people, but they're good on him because he's good to them. He's a reliable Fresh. He's like, they both think it. You know what I mean? Yep. They're not competing over him. He's fucking 12 years old. They're like, just run my drugs. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to let you do anything more than that. You're a kid. And then I also like how he has moxie and he tries not to be a victim, right? You know what I mean? And then the film is also not... I feel like Boys in the Hood, when I watch it, there's a lot of anxiety throughout that whole movie. I feel like this movie is like... The first half is just kind of the setup, and the anxiety is in the payoff, right? It's like... I think the anxiety gets turned up when the shootout happens at... It's not even a shootout. The fucking massacre happens at the park. That's your first moment of like, oh, right, this is a fucked up world, like not like just observably fucked up, but like actively fucked up. Yep. Not like, hey, we're all living and it's kind of shitty here, but we make the best what we can do. It's like no, this is a bad world, and that's when the anxiety. So it's like I feel like they pace that out really well, because I think you can make a movie where this movie could have been a movie where it could have been a horror movie, right? Around every corner is something bad gonna happen, but they don't really do that. I like it. Kev, your overall thoughts of the movie?
To that point, and this ties into my overall thoughts, this movie oddly reminded me of two other films. 12 Years a Slave and Zero Dark 30.
Whoa.
Hang with me here. Mm-hmm. I think all of these films never take...
All two of them?
All three.
Oh, three.
I'm including Fresh.
Okay.
They never take the easy emotional route.
Yes!
Until one big cathartic moment in the end, where it's completely earned.
Yeah, yes.
So
everything is earned, yes.
You never have these big tearjerker moments, and nobody just goes, this is hard, man. It's like, we're just living through these atrocities, oppressions, these terrible things, and then it's like once we kind of reach the apex of where we finally want to get. Spoiler alerts for Zero Dark 30 and 12 Years a Slave. Zero Dark 30. Osama bin Laden's dead. Her job is over. She gets to go home. 12 Years a Slave. He escapes. Finds his family after 12 years.
Mm-hmm. This movie?
Fresh. He gets all the drug dealers killed or captured. He gets out of the life.
Right. He cuts the deal with the cop.
Has to deal with the cop. And then they have the moment of all that weight of everything that they've just had to live through just falls on you at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so expertly done in this film.
Yes.
Especially.
Right.
Where it's just, he shows up. This is a movie where this whole time we're dropped right into him just being this hard kid. You know, it's like he's well into the drug game. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Right.
This isn't a story about how he became a drug dealer. It's how he finally decides it's not the life anymore.
Right.
And we see a budding romance get murdered in cold blood. We see him shoot a dog, as per the culture of, like, if your dog loses a dog fight, you kill the dog.
But his dog didn't lose a dog fight.
He didn't?
No, he won.
Okay, he won the dog fight. Okay. My mistake.
I want to get to that. We'll come back to the dog in a minute. But he does shoot a dog.
He hangs a dog and shoots it, as per the culture.
Which I think is 100% why this movie has a 2.5 stars on Netflix.
Yep.
I think that.
Because people can never look past something like that.
Yeah.
You know,
a little girl gets shot in the neck, entertainment for the whole family.
Yeah.
A dog gets shot. I'm not saying I'm a fan of dogs getting shot. I'm just saying this movie has 2.5 stars on Netflix.
I just wish people cared about people the way they care about dogs. Anyways, he lives through...
And why don't people care about fish? Go ahead.
He lives through the massacre that... At the...
Playground.
At the playground. He lives through the massacre at the liquor store. Between, you know, the rival drug gangs. He's always living on this edge of, like, these nasty people. He lives through that interrogation where the guy gets beaten with a chain.
To death.
We
assume, right? You assume he's dead, right?
I'm assuming he's dead.
Yeah. Jake.
And it's, you know, he has all these moments, and he just has to keep that straight face, that hard face. And just in that last moment when he breaks, and then the movie ends, is so powerful. I was not prepared for that at all.
You were like Samuel L. Jackson, huh?
Yeah. I was, trying to still be this hard thing, and then finally seeing the break.
And it's interesting because I completely agree with you. And I mean, I think part of it is interesting because I don't think the kid actors in this movie are particularly great. They're not great kid actors, right? But I think they use that to their advantage, where Fresh is someone who's bottling up all of his emotions, and he's yelling, he'll get mad, but he never really gets sad. And I think there's a really powerful moment where he gets kicked out of his aunt's house, and she kind of picks her foster kids over him, right? She's like, you've been involved in 2 murders in 2 weeks. Like, the kids are afraid, you're gonna have to leave. And it's interesting because you come into that scene after she's told him it, right? And then you kind of have to pick up on like through the osmosis, like what's she, Yeah. And then he doesn't break. He kind of just takes it, And he's taking it, and he's taking it, and then the movie's playing into the chess idea that you have to use your pieces, and you have to keep them alive as long as possible. But if they get killed, like that's just part of the game, And he's able to execute his plan, but it's not without cost, right? And it's like, I don't know. I mean, when I love that that's the first time we've seen him cry, even though all of these terrible things have happened. Yeah. And he's won the game, but his revenge came at a price. He's destroyed his entire life. He was living off that drug dealer money. He was, these guys were taking care of him. You know what I mean? Like, he's burned his whole life. He's never going to see presumably he's going to go witness protection and never see his father again, right? This is the last time he's going to see his father. And it's all very understated, where it's like he's won the game, but at what cost? And this life that he's led has been so bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting how I notice anytime he lives through another tragedy or escapes a horrible situation, it always cuts to a chess piece being taken on the board. And that's what it is. It's like you slowly are just whittling away anything you have as like some semblance of humanity or reality, and then at some point it's just nothing. You know, you've won the game, but again, how many of your pieces had to go in order for you to win?
Indeed, and I also
and again, that's not a forced allegory,
right?
It's just people play chess in the park. His dad's good at chess. Chess is like there, but it's very nicely, subtly weaved into.
I was reading a piece about this movie on the AV Club, and they're talking about how, like, you know, the 90s was all about, like, speed chess, I guess. Yep. You know, there's, like, a little...
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like we're far enough away from the 90s where that is not a cliche anymore. That is just, like, a thing that this movie has.
Yeah.
Also, like, same thing with, like, this movie is unmistakably, fashion-wise, like, the 90s.
Yeah, it's 90s.
And I think we're further enough... Like, you know, with this movie I played in 97, 2004, like, I don't know, we might have looked back on it like this feels shitty and old.
Yeah.
But now we're far enough away where I think all of that stylistic stuff is okay.
It's just, at this point, it's a 90s period piece. You know?
Right.
Without shoving it in your face. Not 90s.
Yeah, so I think, you know, I think that all really works, you know? And I don't know, I mean, I also love how this movie really respects violence. Like,
it shows it for what it is. It's
right.
not stylized. There aren't strings playing when somebody gets gunned down. And
right.
big blast of blood. It's like, it's quick, the gun goes, and you're dead.
Right, and I think in that first violent scene where where Jake loses the basketball game, gets his gun, comes back, shoots a kid, accidentally shoots the girl, and everyone just scatters, and, you know, it's all these little, like, sound details of, you know, people hands touching a chain link fence as they go through the gate, and their sneakers on the ground and stuff, and then the girl is she got shot in the neck, and you just hear her foot scraping the ground as she's trying to, like, roll over or crawl or just, you know, just kind of suffering through the pain. The movie is not, the movie is saying, like, hey, this is awful, you know what I mean? And I think I think there is a place in culture for fun violence, and I think there's a place in culture for brutal violence, you know what I mean? I think our priorities on them are switched, where it's like, this movie, in my opinion, with this depiction of violence, shouldn't be rated R. I think if you're going to show someone violence, show them... If you're going to show someone less mature violence, show them the reality of terrible violence. And if you're going to show an adult violence, show them fun violence, right?
Because, you know, when you're watching fun violence, you should have some semblance of, like, by the way, if this really happened to somebody, it would be awful.
Right.
You know? But yeah, if you're watching The Matrix, if you're watching Kill Bill, it's like, I know this is a fantasy. But yeah, if you don't establish that with a younger audience, it's like, this is what violence actually is in the world you live in.
Right.
And then it's...
Like, if you hit someone... I almost had this thought in this movie. Like, he's hitting him with a chain. I was like, is he dead? I'm like, he's beating someone with a chain. How many chain hits can you take?
Yep.
And me personally, less than 5.
Single digits.
Yeah, I'm not taking too many chain hits before going down. You know what I mean? So it's interesting, because I think when The Matrix and Kill Bill, and I think those are two great examples, violence is part of the storytelling, right? Yes. It's like, violence is something that these characters learn. And I think that plays into our cultural understanding of violence, where it's like, you know, we violently took this country away from the British, we violently took this country away from the Indians, we violently defended this country from, you know, Japan and Germany, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's like growing up in Catholic school, like, violence is not a way to solve any of your problems, right? At recess, you know, it's like, no fighting, because violence is not a way to solve problems. Cut to history class. Violence is how we solve a lot of these problems, you know what I mean? And that's not an ideal that we want to live to anymore, but... You know, I think
it's a
society's
kind of world.
Yeah,
not just America, but anywhere.
Right.
I took a great history of war class in college that we just went through, like, world history, just going from, like, major war to major war to major war, and it's, you know, what war doesn't solve. You know, the person that loses a war doesn't go, well, I guess my idea is wrong. It's they get bitter and resentful, and then they plan their next move.
Right.
You know, and it's. And like you said, in this movie, it's not stylized violence. It's this very gritty, real, and that is what should be understood at a very young age. That this is the violence that's actually going on every single day in this country,
right,
and in other countries. And then it's violence like the big action movies. It's we're getting our jollies from that, because then we're just not actually going out and killing people.
Right.
You know.
Right. So an interesting, I think this is a very interesting exploration of that, and a really interesting exploration of stuff that I think that America doesn't know a lot about. You know, like dogfighting. Like I think I learned that dogfighting was a thing when Michael Vick thing went down.
I think a lot of people learned about dogfighting.
Yeah, I was like, people fight dogs? Like, where? And they're like, in America. I'm like,
Yep.
Where in America? Like, every city. Like, but not like L.A. Like, yeah, in LA
like
too.
especially LA.
and they're like, yeah, why do you think there's so many pit bulls in shelters? It's like, oh.
Yep.
And like, yeah, because people breed pit bulls. It's like, oh. For dogfighting. And it's like, yes, for dogfighting. It's like,
Right.
it doesn't, it's like two gears that don't fit, the teeth don't fit, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I feel like this movie, and again, contextually, no one explains this is how dogfighting works. You do this, and then one fight, they fight, you know, it's like no one explains any of this shit.
We know that Fresh knows what dogfighting
right.
is, you know.
We're as the audience, we have to
locked
figure it
into
out.
his world.
Right. And there's like, and drug dealing and gun violence, like, you know, you show how it works, and it's like with a drug deal, wordlessly, Fresh is sitting on the car, some guy rolls up, says, "What's up?" Fresh looks to his spotters, the spotters give him the okay, and then Fresh makes the deal. You know what I mean? It's like no one explains, like, you know, hey kid, this is how you do it. You know, you fucking blah 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 blah. It's $5 a hit. This is what H means, heroin. This is what, you know, dope means. It's like if you don't know what dope is, then no one's explaining it to you.
But it's filmed and done in a very smart way where you're just learning visually what's going on. Because there would be a way, if it wasn't as well made as it is, it could get very muddled as to like what they're actually doing.
Right.
But it's very, you know, Bose Jankin is doing some really smart moves with like the camera and how he's editing and who he's cutting back to. It's like that scene in particular is very good. It's all non-verbal,
right? And just storytelling
and just pure like. And every single scene is like that. It's just expertly done to show you what Fresh is doing, what his process is, how he's working.
Mm-hmm. And so that's like the inner city specific kind of stuff, right? But then you go to like when him and the girl have the crush on each other, you know, like his friends are making fun of him, and you know, like especially like his Puerto Rican friend, who, but for being a little Puerto Rican kid, is really throwing around that N word like it's just no tomorrow. But like, you know, he's they're like making fun of him, and then he talks to the girl, and he's talking about cars all of a sudden, and it's like you realize, oh, he's trying to impress her with his knowledge of cars, and she's kind of like you know, not like she's seeing through it. She's not like whatever. She's just seeing through it. Like, yeah, I don't give a shit about cars, but I get what you're trying to do.
Yeah,
I don't know. And then the cherry on top is that it's all wrapped into a revenge story, right? And that's a cinematic language where we kind of divulge.
That's how we just kind of move in the story.
Right.
It's just like we know he wants his whole goal after the girl gets killed is like, I need to get out of this life. How do I do it? Right,
and you don't realize that until a little bit later where, so he talks to his dad about chess and how chess works, and you're like, ooh, I think this is going to be important. Yep. And then you see, you know, he's hoarding all of this money, and we find out later it's $5,000 in a can. Oh, that's another thing I love about this movie. I was like, God damn it, there's a can buried, you know, next to a train track. Someone's going to steal his can money. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's not what happens in this movie. That's the easy way out, right? Yep. The easy way out is someone who's good is doing something bad so that they can stop doing something bad, and then someone takes that away from them. And that's not this movie. This movie steers it the other way, where the kid's doing something bad. He's saving money for, I don't think he knows what, just because he knows he should. Yeah. And then he uses that money to get his sweet revenge. Yeah. And that's what I love about this movie, that it takes it into that revenge genre, and it's what it becomes about. And that's the cinematic language that I'm all about, you know? And and there's real stakes to it, where you think, there's points where it's like, someone asks him a question, and you're like, what the fuck is he gonna say? Yep. And then, you know, like when he throws Jake under the bus, you know what I mean? He's like, I'm running crack for Jake. Yeah. And you know how Jake's never, because Jake gets, you know, he has a temper. He talks about how he's gonna take out Corky because Corky didn't show up to pay them. He shoots the kid and the girl, and he uses all that against him. You know how Jake be getting, you know, he's always so mad that you're not there, you know. So he tips me $50, and he takes that $50, and he's hoarding that for the product or whatever, and it's like, You see how he's using these people against each other.
Yeah, this kid is streetwise in a very believable and very interesting way.
Because when they bought the drugs from Hector, I was like, what the fuck are they doing?
Yep.
You know, is he trying to be a kingpin? He's a kid. No.
And again, going back to what we were talking about in the first half of this episode, how is this affected with a child protagonist instead of a full-grown man protagonist? It just takes it to this whole other level of like, this kid is so smart in spite of his surroundings, you know, and just is using it. And you know what I really like about this movie? I take exception to that synopsis saying he's an innocent kid.
He's not.
He is far from an innocent kid. And that's what I think really puts it over the top.
Right.
He's not a bad kid, per se, but he has done horrendous things.
Oh, that's the thing. And I think that the scene where he's dealing crack personifies this, right? Where it's like, there's a whole nother movie about this kid's journey from innocence to awareness.
Yeah.
Fuck that story. So he's selling crack. Some guy rolls up who looks, you know, like just like a kid, and he's like, "Oh, how much?" He's like, $5, and they sell the crack.
I believe that is producer Lawrence Bender, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so. Indeed. And then there's another guy who's like, "I'll do $5. I'll do 4 for $20," and he's like, 5 for $20, and he's like, "No." And then he's selling it to a pregnant lady, and she's talking about how it didn't get her high the way she wanted to. It's like, oh, this is not like that fun. This is not that fun libertarian version of drugs, right? Where guys just buy drugs and go home, and instead of, watching a movie, they just smoke crack. This is like a pregnant lady smoking crack. Like, she's fucking up the world.
She's addicted to it.
Right.
She can't not have it.
And then the real crackhead shows up where she's like jonesing, right? And she's like offering this 12-year-old kid sex.
Suck
and
his dick.
Yeah, and stuff. And he's like, no. You know what I mean? And you're like, and then he slaps her and he's like, go away, And it's like, yeah, like this kid functions in this terrible world. He is a participant in it. He functions, and not that he's malicious, but it's like he is a functioning member of the criminal underworld.
Yep. It's stunning, and that's what really sets this movie apart.
And I think it is, and I think that's what these guys, the drug dealer guys, think that just because they're paying him and stuff that and just because he's a kid that he can't hurt them.
Yep.
But it's like, no, dude, like, don't fuck with me. And they all learn it the hard way.
Yep. It's great stuff.
Yeah, I really think it's great. Why do you think he kills the dog?
So my understanding is in that culture, see, I thought if your dog loses, then you have to kill it. Like, that's, you electrocute it, or you drown it, or you shoot it.
Drowning a dog. That's crazy.
If I'm not mistaken, Michael Vick has drowned some dogs in his time.
Go sports!
But yeah, it's...
In the words of Skip Bayless, he learned his lesson.
Oh, God. Old Skip.
Watch Skip Bayless on FS1.
No.
You watch that show? Nope. Okay.
No. But yeah, I think my understanding is, if your dog loses, you gotta kill it.
Because his dog wins that first fight.
But doesn't he lose another one?
No, remember they say, let's not do another one, let's get some real money, and they're gonna sell the crack. Or they're gonna, then they uses his friend to spread the word about the crack. He kills the dog, and the dog is compared to the rook, right?
Yeah.
In chess. So I thought that he was gonna try to pin that on, and maybe he said that, and I just forgot the specific line. I thought he pinned that on Jake, like Jake killed my dog. Or maybe I thought that that's what he was gonna do. Maybe he didn't do that. Or maybe you have to sacrifice the things that you love, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
He's not gonna be able to take the dog with him. I didn't understand that. But oh man,
another watch probably get that through.
Figure that out. And I do. I mean, dude, like the nail biting when he was setting up Jake with through Corky.
Yep.
I was just like hiding my face, Conjuring style, just so tense. Where it's like you just know that someone's gonna, like Jake's gonna get it bad,
And then like the scene where him and his friend get jumped by the three dudes in the truck. When they have the drugs in the science book, and they have the tin of money, and like these guys don't give a fuck, and they shoot and kill his friend. And he just has to. He has no time to process that his friend is dead. He just has to run away.
Well, that's a great thing. Again, understated, not cliched. The friend reaches for the gun. It's kind of underneath the wheel of a car. The tire of the car gets shot. He's trapped. He goes back to help protect him. They shoot a warning shot, and they look at each other, and Fresh just runs away. And there's no like, Fresh, how dare you betray me? Like, we know what this kid's gonna have to live with by leaving his friend to be murdered. We know his friend's gonna get murdered, right? And maybe you're hoping against hope that like, oh, they're not gonna murder this little kid, but they do. And the kid shot at them, so it's like, you knew that was gonna happen because Fresh said, hey, if we get jumped, just drop the bag and run. Like, I do this. That's how it works, And the kid tries to, fucking pull a Rambo.
Yep.
And it's so understated that the stakes. No one has to say like, oh, you left him to, then his friend beats him up, and it's like, that's all you need. You know what I mean?
That's all you need.
Do you have any nitpicks of this movie?
I would say there might be a little trimming that can be done on it. I mean, maybe it's like 5 minutes too long.
Just like little snips here and there.
Just streamline a little bit. I get that it's a more loose narrative and it's depicting a way of life, which is fine. But part of me wants it to be just a little slimmer. Mm-hmm. That's about it, though. Mm-hmm.
I'd say this 90s big shirts, just why? Why did we do it?
We didn't know any better.
No, I think it was manufacturers like, listen, let's just make a bunch of fucking larges and people can fucking deal with it, right? Yep. Bugle Boy looking at you.
Oh, man.
Bugle Boy.
Blast from the past.
The kid's acting is not great, but I think that it's navigated in a way where that doesn't affect it at all.
See, I thought they were all pretty... I thought they were all good.
This is like the
blow
nitpick.
Me away? No.
This is what I'm saying. This is the nitpicks of nitpicks, right? This is living in a Haley Joel Osment world, living in a Dakota Fanning world, living in an Ellie Fanning world. You know what I'm saying?
And Kid from Looper world.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is like, it's an unfair comparison. We weren't there in the 90s.
Exactly.
Also, this I think with practical effects, I think they do a lot of great things with this, especially when the dog is killing the other dog, and it's like I kind of paused it and looked, and it's like, okay, that's like a puppet, but the way they did it on the edit, it looks like the dog is in its death throes as the other dog is eating it. You know what I mean? Biting his neck. And then when he's hanging the dog, that effect's really good. But they cut back to the dog's face, and it's like the dog is clearly smiling.
Yeah, it's like...
And it's like, you just didn't need that shot. You could just shot it from behind.
It's getting a tummy rub. It's
like...
somebody's holding it up.
Yeah, you totally know that someone's just holding that dog up and petting its belly while they just loosely slipped the leash around his neck. Yeah. So it's basically someone just holding a dog, and they just framed it in a way that looked like he's being hung. Yeah. And from behind, when they're hanging the dog puppet, it looks totally like... was real, and the dog being and they cut to his face and he's just being a fucking dumb dog. Yeah, that's just that little thing, and maybe they put that in there so people wouldn't write them letters, which I'm sure they got anyways. But any cool stuff?
One of my favorite lines in the movie: "It tastes like a tub of piss someone farted in." Great.
I knew that you would love that. And on that note,
you know I love those.
Sam Jackson just kills this movie.
Great understated role.
So good.
Old Samuel L.
Yeah, he's just...
And I like that he's kind of kept on the sidelines a little bit. He doesn't weave into the main story at any point. It's just very... Fresh goes and visits him and either gets advice or learns something or just has the moments that he's never going to get with his dad ever again.
Right.
So I like that he's kind of this... sort of, I don't want to say an angel type character, but he's on the sidelines. He's like the wise old man Yoda character, but poisonous. Exactly.
Why do you think that he's not allowed to see him? Because he's a drunk?
Probably because he's drunk, and there's probably some kind of restraining order, or who knows. So yeah, he lives in a trailer and by the chess park. So,
and we're talking about how Fresh is not innocent. But I think what we didn't talk about there, and I do think this is important to the movie. Do you sympathize with him though? We know he's not innocent. We know that he's a product of his own system, but is he sympathetic?
In a weird way, I think he is.
I think he completely is too. I think it's a pragmatic thing, right? He's playing and I think the chess allegory totally works in this way. He's playing within the system. He's defined by the limitations of the game. In chess and in this situation, right? It's like, so, there's the cops, there's the bad guys, there's this guy, there's all these different, it's like, so he's using them all against each other when push comes to shove. Yeah. And I think that we respect that pragmatism, and we respect that he's not trying to hurt anyone who doesn't really deserve it. And he's not nice to some people. But, he didn't want his friend to get... That's one part of the plan, is for his friend to get killed, right? The part of the plan was his friend to spread the word because he's a loudmouth motherfucker.
Yeah.
The plan was for them to drop the bags and run away. His friend gets killed. He didn't want him to get killed. You know what I mean? But there was risks involved.
He didn't follow the plan either.
Right.
So, yeah, it's very... I think what helps him be sympathetic, too, is he is far from the worst person here. He's like... He does bad things, but... He's nowhere near Giancarlo Esposito's level. He's nowhere near Jake's level. He's nowhere near Corky's level. It's like, this is a world full of bad people, and a lot of the bad people have no remorse about what they do, or really don't get a sense that they have remorse.
Right, they think they're doing the right thing. Which I think is prescient in the movie, because it's like, bad people, villains don't think that they're villains. I think this movie personifies that all the way around, right? There's a different version of the movie where the cops are the bad guys, and you can tell in the movie these cops don't think that they're the bad guys. They think they're trying to do the right thing. And every 90s movie has that one scene with a cop where it's like, yeah, you want to be this place is a zoo and you're the monkey in this zoo. Yeah. It's like I feel like that they gave you just enough of that, right? And I think not too much. Yeah, I think it was well done in that way. Last thing before we get out of here. We talked about at the top of the episode, what you wanted out of this movie. And you said that you wanted the child protagonist to make it matter. Do you think it matters in this?
Absolutely. There's no way you could tell this story any other way. Because his innocence, but also... innocence is the wrong word. His youth, but also his pragmatism and his knowledge. You couldn't...
That's the story. That's the weaving of the story.
Exactly. If it was just like a 20-year-old or a 25-year-old... it'd just be like, of course, he's been in this game forever. He ought to know everything. But yeah, the fact that a 12-year-old knows how to work this system and sell crack and, play gangsters against each other, that's really something interesting that I've never seen before.
It's also interesting, I think part of that is, and I don't know what to make of this, is that he has 3 father figures. Corky, Esteban, and Sam Jackson. And they're all defined by drugs. Crack, heroin, and alcohol, right? I think that's him being a kid in that kind of perspective is very interesting.
Yeah, it's like the 3 vices of the hood, basically. Crack, heroin, and alcohol. It's he never has that one stable, that rock that he can go to and this is the ideal I need to go to. It's like they're all fucked up in some specific way.
Indeed. And speaking of that, when he's trying to get his sister out of the heroin dealer's den, or the prostitution den or whatever that is, and he's like, Aunt whatever loves you, and it's like, she's a saint, she loves everyone, it ain't no shit to be loved by a saint. What a fucking profound word, thing of talking about your own self-worth and the burden of love, and just that's a whole movie right there, just that idea, right? It ain't no shit to be loved by a saint. And that's just fucking one scene in this movie. And then he says, I love you. And then you're like, wow, whatever. And then that, in the end, is what this movie's really about, right? He's trying to save himself and his sister.
Exactly.
And I don't know, man. So, big picture, do we like this movie and does it work? I think this is one of the best that we've done. And that Netflix 2.5 stars is a blight. On this movie. How dare you? How dare you?
I think it's great too, and it's a pleasant surprise. Maybe pleasant's not the right word. But
no, in terms of a movie, fine. This, we've never heard of this movie.
This should be spoken in the same words as
Menace Society,
Fiction,
the '90s,
the '90s indie boom,
indies boom, and the '90s urban stories should be in both those conversations.
They should be there, and somehow we've never heard of it. It's probably the best. I think it's better than Boys in the Hood.
I mean, if it's not better than Boys in the Hood, I could tell if think
it's on par.
It's on par for sure.
It's on par with Do the Right Thing, which I think is the pinnacle of the urban story.
I wouldn't be mad if someone chose those movies over this for whatever reason, personal preference.
Yeah. But this one's just feels like it's not even in the conversation.
No,
that is a tragedy.
Right.
Because this is a really great film.
Strong movie.
Good job, Corey.
Yeah. So that's it for us. We'd like to thank Corey for sending us this pick. I think I can speak on behalf of both of us for saying that. It's great.
Great stuff. I told you I trusted Corey's opinion.
I mean, you're right. This episode written by Kev, music by Jeff Russell. I'm Mr. Jibber Jabber. That's Kev. You're the beautiful people. Just stay fresh.